Hello, everyone. Hey, Trailblazing families. How is everyone today? Today, we're going to talk about something that is pretty important. I mean, we all talk about getting our finances and money situation in order. And sometimes we don't like to pay taxes or get everything in order for Uncle Sam, but it's, what is it? Death and taxes are the two things you can't get away from. Right, Shannon?
That's correct.
Yeah, so I have my tax preparer, Shannon Abad, and she is an American, and she is currently living in Argentina. And we met when I was, my kids and I were in the Sacred Valley of Peru. Gosh, what was it, 5 years ago? I can't remember, 4 or 5 years ago.
More than actually. Yeah, we moved in 2016 to the Sacred Valley. And I think you were there 2018, almost 5 years ago.
Yeah. And you met your Peruvian husband in the US, correct?
That's correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going on 23 years.
Awesome.
Wow.
Jose is a sweetheart. And so you
Yes.
guys met in the US and you decided to move to Peru. Why? For the adventure or?
Well, yeah, all of the above, really. One of the best things I think that we discussed when we were deciding the pros and cons, and I saw also in your live cast the other day, was that you wanted to give like a world view, and also, you know, give your kids while they were young. Our daughter was 5 going on 6. She turned 6 in Peru. And we wanted to give her the other side, you know, of the globe, so to speak.
Yeah.
The US version, she had started kindergarten and, you know, went through a year there. And then we decided, well, let's see how things are in Peru, and also with family close by. The nuclear family is a little bit different as it is in the United States, because you're all spread out, you know, brothers and sisters. And
What part of the
uncles.
States are you from?
We're from the Midwest. We're from Kansas originally. And the last state in the state Sierra was born in, our daughter, was Colorado. So we moved into Colorado, from Colorado to Lima, Peru. So for a culture shock, that was it.
Yeah, and then later on the Sacred Valley in Urubamba, which is a really—
That's right. That's right. We love the Sacred Valley. We actually moved there to pursue volunteer work and also to teach English. Of all things, we learned in the big scheme of things that there's a lot of you know, young people that are starting out that really, they have that gap. Like in Worldschoolers, you know, you get kind of an overview of how things work in the world, but with a traditional school setting, you know, you go from graduate to what do I do with my life, right? Mm-hmm. So having another language, being able to kind of market yourself as a young person is something that the schools just don't teach.
Yeah, true.
So we decided to fill a need.
If you know another language, it doubles your opportunities in life for, you know, for school, for work, for a business, for making friends, for traveling. I think it's super important, you know, to learn another language, or at least try to. It's not easy.
That's right. That's right. You want to be able to be in the know, so to speak, of the culture that you're in. And with young people, I mean, they capture everything so quickly. Yeah. So that's the other benefit, right, to moving with young children. Mm-hmm. I think we were a little bit nervous at the beginning moving to Peru, because our daughter, the talking little person that she was becoming, was mute for almost 3 months. Oh, wow. So we were talking, you know, going to a speech therapist and, you know, talking through what we could do to, you know, figure out if, you know, we needed to move back, what was going on with this young person. But really, she was just capturing everything. She was, you know, soaking it all in. Mm-hmm. And within 3 months, she could talk left and right in Spanish. And we were like, who is this child? You know.
That's so
So we
interesting.
were pleasantly surprised that she picked up so quickly, and us two young people. So,
Yeah, that would make sense. I guess if I was a kid and I was in a totally new environment with a totally new language, I'd probably be quiet too and just listen and soak it in. And then once I felt confident, I'd probably start speaking a little bit.
sure, sure.
Okay, so how did you get into doing taxes for expats and nomads?
Right. So being in Lima, the job prospects were either teaching English or, like a customer service answering a phone. And I just felt like my accounting degree, was something I worked really hard to get, having, young kids at home and a supportive husband and getting through that getting of the degree. I felt like I'm really not using it to any degree at this point, and I wanted to. So we started making connections in our community with the expats, the American Canadian Association, that's the international schools where our daughter was attending. And we felt that there was a gap, there were Americans that talked about, well, it's tax time again, but they didn't really know where to go. So we ended up at the embassy for some odd reason, immigration, and found there's only one other accountant that was handling expat taxes or American taxes.
Uh-huh.
And so we felt that was the gap, right? So we just put the word out, so to speak. I'm doing taxes because I had done taxes prior to being in Peru.
Okay.
And I felt like with a little bit of work and investment in the webinars and all the resources that are available online, that bringing myself up to speed, I got accredited. I started doing taxes for the expats there in Lima. So that's how I got my start. It was amazing.
Good, good.
Natural, organic,
Yeah, no, it was again, I didn't I guess you did it prior to moving to Peru. But there's a little bit of a difference of doing it for expats versus people who are in the US. And I want to mention that probably the audience watching, there's a lot of Americans here, but there's also people from other countries. And Shannon, you focus on taxes for Americans, but there's similarities. I think we're going to be talking about things that can help non-Americans too. Okay, so let's just try to give some tips to people who are new to world schooling, because I'm guessing, we've all done our taxes back in the States or our home countries, but let's just talk about how to prepare for it while we're on the road, nomadic and whatnot. So I want to mention, we had mentioned before that I had taken, when I started traveling 6 years ago, I took a year off. So I didn't work that year. And from what I understand, Americans and then a country in Africa called Eritrea are two countries that you still have to file your taxes. And from what I understand, in the US, you need to file it if you make at least $12,500 a year, in that January through December year. So there have been times when I didn't work because I took a year off. So I didn't have to do my tax that year. And this happened when I was, younger and backpacking and stuff. So now other countries, some people deregister from their country or local province or whatever, so they don't have to pay taxes, even if they're working as a digital nomad or freelancer and making worldwide income, because they're outside of the US, or sorry, their country. They don't have to, from what I understand, file taxes. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I know some people still stay registered because there's other benefits of being registered for that country, whether it's health insurance or they get a payment from their government because they have kids, right, whatever it is. But there are some people who deregister, for example, Germany or other countries, because homeschooling is not legal. So that's another reason why they deregister, because they're out of the country and they're working on their laptops or whatever. But the US, we still have to file our taxes as long as we make over 12,500. Correct, Shannon?
Yeah. According to the IRS, every American is subject to tax implications if they from all worldwide sources. So you want to make sure that your reportable income, any kind of gig work, digital nomad, anything that hits your bank, you have ways to track those things. So At the end of the year, you want to make sure that all of the year's income and earnings are as such that you don't fall out of compliance, let's call it,
Yeah.
according to the IRS, right?
I know a couple people who are, they work for the school system, and they're taking a sabbatical for a year. But I told them as long as they're still from January to June making 12,500, they still have to file the taxes.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about there's a benefit for being an American and being abroad. The Foreign Earned Income Exclusion Act, or expat.
That's correct.
Can you
It's
tell me
called
the actual term?
FEIE. Right, it is. You got it right. It's
Okay.
Foreign Earned Income Exclusion. And those are income limits for those expats, those US expats that are outside the United States working and earning outside. So, you know, as far as that goes, the income limit, you know, that you can reach in order to exclude that income is for 2023, 120,000, for example. And
For a
those
single person,
limits,
and then
a
double
single
that for
person,
a couple.
single taxpayer, right?
Okay.
So it is possible for you and your husband or spouse, partner, to earn both 120 and have each of you under those limits. So 220 each.
Okay. From what I understand, you still have to pay Social Security and Medicare.
Yes, yes. And those things, like on a normal earnings statement, you would get a W-2 at the end of the year from a US company, for example, if the Americans listening are familiar. But as an independent worker, this is your way of declaring to the IRS, this is what I earned during 2022, okay? And that will go against your earnings for Social Security, okay? It's not necessarily, you know, that you're taxed by Social Security because you're not an entity unless you are a business, right? But as an individual, you're not being taxed by Social Security for
Right.
Social Security and Medicare. So those deductions aren't being taken out.
If
per
you're
se.
a business person or sole proprietor
right.
or freelancer. Okay, that's great. Because I mean, think about the
different.
taxes you could save if you're earning up to 120,000. That's a big amount. Now, from what
Huge
I
chunk,
understand,
right.
this was set up because if an American was working for a company in France, for example, they would be paying tax in France. And
That's
so the
right.
Americans, US government doesn't want you to have to pay double tax, right?
That's
so there's
right.
a lot of treaties between the US and other countries. And so you don't have to pay tax, you know, in France and in the US. So that is one of the reasons why it happens. So you have to prove your residency in another country, or you have to prove that you've been out of the US roughly 11 months out of the year, correct?
Yeah, 330 days is the physical presence test that the IRS has. Okay. Yeah, and speaking about the other countries and their tax treaties and this kind of subject, most countries that have tax treaties, even if you pay as an expat your tax, say to France, say to Peru, you are eligible then also for foreign tax credits in addition to and or with your foreign exclusion, income exclusion, okay? So you want to make sure any kind of taxes, any kind of earning statements, you keep track of those things so that you can, at the end of the year, you can get credit for what you paid in.
Okay, but for a nomad, as long as we don't become tax residents in another country, and I know a lot of countries, I think it's like 6 months, once you're there for 6 months,
Right.
and obviously you probably have a residency visa at that point. But if you don't stay anywhere for 6 months, you don't have to pay tax in that country. I know Mexico, it's a little bit different. They consider you a tax resident if you own property there or you have an interest-bearing savings account. But I mean, there's many Americans who go to Mexico for 6 months, you know, leave for a day, come back for years and years, and they're kind of illegal, but it's kind of their way to not have to pay taxes in Mexico. And then they're not in the US for more than 330 days, so they don't have to pay taxes in the US. So it's a great way to save money on taxes.
Yeah, at the same time, your tax, like I mentioned about the Social Security, you want to earn those credits,
Right.
earnings for later in life when you do want to claim Social
True.
Security from the United States. That's the benefit, in my opinion, for filing your taxes year on year.
Yeah.
Back to your point about the taxes in other countries and border hopping, or going in and out of a country. You're not going to be eligible, again, as I mentioned earlier, for the foreign earned income exclusion unless you've been over a 12-month period. It doesn't have to be consecutive, but over a 12-month period out of country, 330 days. Okay.
Right, right,
So
right.
that's an important distinction.
Yeah.
And also, again, you're not, they call it tax avoidance, and you're not gonna be like Capone, to
Right, right.
get tracked down, for something minimal, but you
Well,
do
like
want
I
to be
said, you still have to
prepared.
file it, but because of the FEIE, you might have this tax break. And
Exactly.
I know we've never used the FEIE for my taxes because I'm a single parent with 2 dependents, and I guess I have
Right.
other things that help me with my taxes there, right?
Correct. And here, this will lead us into another exclusion and or benefit for U.S. taxpayers that, for those listening, that might be important. You do have to be within the U.S. for 6 months for you to claim the child tax credit. Now, if you have children, this is something, you want to make sure. And again, as you mentioned, you don't have to claim the FEIE to get benefits, tax benefits, because you're going to always, as you know, you're a nomad and you have deductions. So you can itemize those deductions, and those in some cases will offset any tax.
Right.
Although you're not going to avoid the taxes that are assessed to you. You can minimize the
Right.
tax. Do you
Right.
understand?
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
a
And I wanted to talk about the different types of workers, but I'm friends with somebody who has been an English teacher all around the world. And so
right.
she hasn't earned very much in Social Security, and she's now getting nervous about what she's going to do for retirement because
Right.
I'm letting her know, like, you got to start, either go back to the US and work there or start saving and investing for your own retirement.
Yes, that's important. And when again, you can have the necessary credits for Social Security to receive something, but it is dependent upon your income, right? Your overall income is what they judge the actual Social Security checks, right? That you're going to get month on month after you retire.
And how
Right.
long you were contributing.
That's correct.
Sorry, my cough, I'm still having.
Okay.
Kara asked a question. She said, does the foreign for expats include online and passive, like, rent income? What
Okay,
happens if you own property in the US, but you're abroad?
Sure. Yeah, you're going to want to have like any kind of tax and registration, any kind of, if you buy new property throughout that tax year, you want to keep all of the housing and that kind of information separate. The foreign earned income exclusion is just for that, just for income. Okay, it's apart from housing.
Okay, yeah, but maybe she's earning passive income because she has a renter and somebody's
Gotcha.
living in her house, and while she's out of the US, she's renting it and earning income that way.
Yeah, any kind of worldwide income and rental income is part of the income package, but it's a different category. It wouldn't be included under foreign earnings.
Okay.
Because it's within the United States.
Okay, so let's talk about being an employee, like a remote worker for a US company, and then being an independent contractor, freelancer, self-employed, having an online
worker.
Yeah, gig worker, or maybe you're selling products online, or you're selling a service. So let's talk about taxes, because the remote worker, somebody who's an employee, they would get a W-2 from their employer, correct?
Yeah, it's up to the employer. And in these instances, there's 2 ways that the employer goes. He either hires you as an employee with W-2, with your benefits, Social Security, Medicare taken out, and you get your earnings statement, the W-2 at the end of the year. Okay. And then there's the second form, which is for most remote workers. Most of my clients, they just have their earnings statement, what they were paid through PayPal or through their bank in the United States. And they're more of a freelancer, okay, or an independent contractor. And what they would receive if they had earned anything over $600, they would receive 1099, okay? 1099 NEC is what they call it right now.
Okay.
So those statements from U.S. employers are mandatory, and they're due to you at the end of January every year following the current tax year.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess if you're working for a company, it might, and you're abroad, and if they let you be abroad, it might
Right.
not make sense for you to stay an employee. It might be better for you to be a 1099 because you can't use the health insurance and some of the benefits anyway.
That's
But
correct.
some companies, they kind of freak out about that, like, well, we don't want a bunch of independent contractors, because in some states you can't, as an independent contractor, your boss is not supposed to tell you what to do. Yeah, because certain states, they're like, no, that's an employee, you know, because they're an
Right.
independent contractor, like a consultant is different
Right.
than an employee, because you hire a consultant for a role, a job, or whatever, a project or something.
Right.
You're not supposed to
Right.
micromanage them. That's more of an employee. So I know that's sometimes kind of
Yeah, it's kind of gray area. And again, it's up to the employer how flexible they are with their remote employees, right? They want to, by all accounts, they want to avoid having to pay those benefits, those Benny packages that are so much a part of the payroll in a company. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you are an independent contractor, technically you're your own boss. You are. And whether or not your state in the United States has the rules, how the employer-employee contract goes is up to you to dictate at the beginning, at the outset of your contract. I would say, make sure that those things are really clear. And for tax purposes, for especially, the earnings statements that they are giving to you on time and that kind of thing. So you can keep track of what you're earning and that they're paying you fairly.
Okay.
They're
All right.
still subject to those fair standards, right? For
Okay.
employers.
Okay. I'm just looking at some of my notes here.
Sure.
So if we're nomadic and say we're an independent contractor and or a self-employed and we started an online business like I just did, let's talk about organizing our taxes, because I need to once a year get you a bunch of data. So what I do is, I have my bank, I have a credit union, I have PayPal, I have, there's a bunch of stuff, credit cards, and I download them and I try to get it into one document. And then sometimes you help me color code them of what I try to categorize them, whether it's, a travel expense, because I'm in the travel business. So there's some travel stuff I can write off. And there's, there's whatever, there's obviously technology and subscriptions and office kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. I have a traveling mailbox account once a year. So I actually keep track of everything. And I remember you looking at something saying, we can't write that off. We can't, that's not taxable, or that's not something you can put
deductible.
Deductible. Yeah. Right. But I like to keep, I like to know my categories, and so that's just for my personal use. But then you take that and then you take that information, and obviously, knowing that I'm an independent contractor, I have 2 dependents, and you do your magic. Right. So are there any other tips? Because do we need to keep track of all the receipts? Should we take a picture of it? I think there's like a certain dollar amount. I mean, it's kind of hard to travel with a scanner.
No, it is, right. So most of my clients, they use their phone and they take pictures, right, of every restaurant receipt, of every, travel document, that kind of thing. Here's my kind of rule of thumb. Think of yourself, even if you're traveling, sporadically, if you're not going to use that foreign income exclusion, you want to think of yourself as a business, right? You want to return on your investments. So earnings versus deductions, are going to be your net gain, right? And what we want to see, we meaning the accountants and tax preparers of the world, is you to make good lists, good a guarantee of what was really coming in and or what you spent. A lot of us, we're not going to remember the travel dinner that we had in January when we're already in February of the following year. So you want to just make sure, I don't want to say keep shoe boxes because that's scary, it's a nightmare, but I want you to as a independent worker, think of yourself as a business owner, right? You want to organize your paperwork like you would month on month, a regular business, just to see kind of where you're at and what you earned during those months.
Right.
The best way that I try to encourage my people, and you're one of my people that actually are very, very organized. Kudos to
at the
you.
beginning, I think I learned over the years. I've gotten better.
Yes, we learn together. We're a team, right? So the best way to organize is using my tax organizer, and it just kind of is a guide, right? To say, for example, the lady that mentioned rental income, there's a page on there, something that you need to include, but you don't look at every day, right? So you can pull bank statements, you can pull any kind of tax documents if you're an investor, any kind of investment income, student loans. That's something most of us forget about or want to forget about. Student loan 1098s that often come to you in January. Any kind of tax documents that you're going to receive, whether it's investments or banking, you want to make sure that that's in a folder somewhere throughout the year. Statements.
Also, charitable deductions. And
that's correct.
And there's a bunch of world schoolers, before they start world schooling, they donate a bunch of their stuff to Goodwill or a similar thing. So those are deductible as well.
That's correct. Yeah. Cash and things that you donate are also eligible for deductions at the end of the year. There is, of course, limits depending on your income, right? But we want to make sure we keep track of that to see if it is eligible at the end of the year. See what washes out.
Everyone, make sure to try to get those receipts from Goodwill or wherever you're donating.
Yes. Make sure to get receipts, even if it's, come on, let's face it, in the third world countries, they, write something on a piece of paper, and sign it. That's good enough. As long as you keep a kind of a backup of what you've done. And as you mentioned, putting everything into one place, whether it's accounting software, if you're an actual business, I use QuickBooks, self-employed, for example, or if it's just an Excel spreadsheet or a Word doc saying, this is housing, this is utilities, this is etc.
Yeah, one of the audience members asked about the app. So you would just recommend the QuickBooks, right?
Yeah, I really would. And I've helped many of my people set up their new businesses on QuickBooks software. So it's user-friendly.
Okay. And then, when I was in Argentina, unfortunately, we didn't get to meet in person because we were in different parts of the country, but it's a cash society there. And so I was keeping track of everything on an Excel spreadsheet. I'm almost done with that. And I categorized them and I color coded them. So I learned that from you. And that was I was there for 4 months, but then the rest of the year, I'll just download all my other stuff like I've done in the past and try to get it all in one document. But yeah, so basically you need to keep track of all your transactions to see what's deductible and your income and rental income, passive income, charitable deductions, investment, there's a lot. It's overwhelming, but then you can, your clients put it on your little tax organizer. It's like a big PDF that you can fill out.
Sure is. Yes, exactly. And then according to, what they give me, I kind of decipher, what, and I try to be also an educator, right? As you mentioned, the first year that we worked together, nobody likes taxes, first of all, but I understand. I don't take offense.
Yeah.
But I do love to help educate. That's the other thing.
That's why I hire you, because you're good at it, and you do it for me.
Thank
I mean,
you.
I know if somebody has easy, simple taxes, they can just get TurboTax and do it themselves, right?
Sure.
But if it's a little bit more complicated,
Yeah,
especially when you're abroad,
expat taxes, right?
yeah. What else do we need to know about expat taxes?
Well, any kind of dates of travel, that's a big thing that a lot of people, I know you have your tickets, right? And you want to make sure that if you're outside the country, you know, your employer, your US employer sends you outside the country, well, that's a business trip, right? So you want to make sure and keep business travel, personal travel, but all travel outside the US. You want to make sure and keep track of that. As an expat, if you go back into the US for any period of time, so that you can be eligible to exclude the foreign income if you're going to claim that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure travel is a big one that I think a lot of people kind of overlook. They have a plane ticket, but you know, if they traveled a lot, why did I go? How many days was I there for business? Did I go, you know, with the family? You know, did we go to a World School Summit? You know, that could be education and business and personal travel, right? So
Now,
that
let's
kind of
talk
thing.
about those deductions. So you can deduct some educational expenses. Yes.
Sure. Homeschooling and educational expenses are deductible.
Good.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to make sure and keep track of, you know, any kind of books and supplies. If it's over, you know, a certain dollar amount, say over $25, you don't need a receipt. I'm sorry, under $25, you don't need a receipt, but you want to keep track of all your receipts and just
Yeah.
make sure you know, especially if you have multiple children, you know, kind of split that 3 ways or 2 ways in your
It's
case,
still a good
right?
idea to take pictures of everything.
Yes, I believe that. I believe in that, especially since we have that. Yeah.
Okay. Somebody's asking if my only income is non-taxable disability and I have no other income as I'm nomadic, do I still need to file a zero income 1040 EZ, especially if I'm in the US for 6 months for the child tax credit?
Yeah, you want to file because you're going to get that, be eligible for that child tax credit, right? You want to file with your retirement or your Social Security income. Sure.
Okay, so Kara
Yeah.
hopefully answered. Yeah, this can be an educational expense. Somebody's saying, yay.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you've let me deduct like a World School Summit I went to. What else are deductible expenses? I mean, you know, I'm kind of in the travel business now, so
Right.
I've
Right.
I can document that, you know.
Moving into, you know, a little bit more of the complex part, which is why you hire somebody like me,
Yeah.
would be like if you have any health savings plans or IRAs, any kind of investment accounts. Those are a little bit not specific to expats, but taxes in general, right? There's a lot of buckets, you know, that we put our money, and we want to make sure that we get the information correct in the tax forms so that we're not, you know, assessed any penalties or interest.
Okay.
One thing that I wanted to mention for expats and for people who have foreign accounts, right? This is a big one right now. The Treasury Department has started in the past few years, I've noticed, to really put emphasis on the deadlines and compliance regulations for FBARs, they're called, foreign bank account reporting, okay? So if you have an aggregate amount of monies in a foreign account over $10,000, if you're a US person, you're obligated to disclose those. And they wanted, you know, they want to know where you're keeping your money outside the US. That's the long and short of it.
Who are hiring or hiding money. When I was in the Republic of Georgia and I opened up a bank account just because it makes it easy, that country, for some reason, there's certain things that you need to pay with a local bank account, like online stuff or whatever. So I just put, you know, a few $100s in there, but I had to fill out an IRS form.
Right.
You know, here I am across the world. And so, and I asked the bank, I said, do other non-Americans have to fill this out? And no, it's the US government, the IRS is all over the world now, putting lots of pressure on these countries to make sure Americans who open bank accounts fill out a form and report it, because they're trying to, you know, catch the people who are hiding drug money or whatever,
Or
whatever they
opening, yeah, opening accounts in different countries, right? You want to make sure that those amounts, if they exceed the threshold, that those are being reported. That's the main thing. And they could if they wanted to, right? That's a way to track you.
Okay, let's talk about if somebody becomes an expat in a country. I think I mentioned to you that a friend of mine moved to Portugal recently and was asking me to recommend someone to do her taxes. But wouldn't you think it would be good for her to find someone who knows Portugal taxes and US taxes, or does it matter?
It really doesn't matter because other than the language barrier of, speaking Portuguese, there would be, as there always is with an employer, an end of year earnings statement, which would itemize, right, any kind of taxes to that employee. So those are called your foreign taxes, which would be then make you eligible for the foreign tax credit if you're you're in a country that has that tax treaty, as we mentioned earlier.
Now, this person's a digital nomad, works online, so would not be working for a Portuguese company, so
Okay.
she's just earning online. So she just
Right.
happens to live in Portugal now, and she got residency there. So
Right.
I'm just wondering how that works, because I've never been an expat. I mean, except for when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
My family and I, we were expats, but I'm just nomadic, so I never have to deal with taxes in any country.
Sure. So yeah, you just want to, as a U.S. person, she's U.S. dual citizen even, or just a
No,
residency.
just a US person, yeah.
Okay, U.S. person, residency in another country. Again, you're your own boss, right? You're a digital nomad. So you would do your taxes accordingly, just like if it was your business. If you don't declare you as a business entity necessarily, but you are a freelancer and you have deductions, right? So you would just declare it that way. And any foreign taxes that she did, if she ever, declared residency and they assessed a tax of any kind, even if it's just for housing or food or however they do it in Portugal,
Okay.
you would then be, just keeping those in your shoebox, so to speak.
Your virtual shoebox.
Your virtual shoebox, so that you can declare those at the end of the year.
Okay, sounds good. Trying to think if I have any other questions. Kara or anyone else listening, watching, let us know if you have questions before we finish up. And then obviously for the US taxes, they are supposed to be filed by April 15th, but sometimes
April 18th this year, because it's on a Saturday.
Okay, good.
So see, there we go.
But sometimes you can get an extension, but that's only if you don't owe, correct? Like what are the qualifications for getting?
Yeah, let's talk about that, because the actual handling of the taxes every year, we get a little nervous around April 15th, and this year it's the 18th. But for foreigners living in a foreign country, you are eligible for a automatic tax extension till June 15th. Okay. Yeah. So, but you want to make sure that June 15th is an extension. But if you owe taxes, April 18th is when the clock starts. Okay. You can file for an extension to file. Okay. There's a definite difference. Extension to file is not going to give you an extension on owing tax if you owe taxes. If you don't owe, you're automatically extended till June 15th if you're outside the US. That's just basically for mail purposes, right? Because if you're like me in Peru, we had to wait maybe 6 weeks for the mail truck, right? Especially in the Sacred Valley. And then also you can apply for a second extension, formal application of extension until October 15th this year.
Okay. That gives you about 6 months.
Yeah.
The person in Portugal, what about health insurance? I don't know. I'm guessing they got health insurance in Portugal. Okay, Kara's asking if I don't reside in the US at all for the entire year and don't have reportable income, I do still have to file something correct, even if I don't have any acceptable deduction. Okay, again, if you don't make over 12,500, you do not need to file, from what I understand. But you might have some deductions, right? Shannon, what would you advise?
Well, if you're, okay, there's, it's kind of a slippery slope, but if you say you're not making income, but you have deductions, you're not gonna have any income to
Deduct.
itemize against.
Yeah.
So, you know, my
But I know
advice
in the
probably,
past, I know in the past, I was starting a business and like that, you know, I took time off. I was starting a business. So I had business expenses for my business that I started the next year and I had income that
yeah,
year.
yeah.
So,
You also don't, you don't have to have always a gain on your business. You can have a loss, you know, you still want to keep your receipts because that happens, right? When we go into business, we have less income or less earnings the first few years, let's say, than we do have expenses or startup costs. So
right.
you want to keep track. If even if you're thinking, a lot of people think of, I don't know, what's an example? Like you said, consulting, right? If they just go for a few talks a year, right? But they earn something, say over the threshold, the limit. You want to make sure that you're thinking of that not just as a hobby because you did it a few times a year, or you were outside the country and you went to a few summits and had to talk. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like you want to make sure that that's you consider that in your mind, that is a business. That is something that I can declare. And also, like I mentioned earlier, it's a benefit for Social Security later on down the line.
Right, right. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Shannon. Somebody
You're
was
so
asking a
welcome.
question about the insurance in Portugal, and that's not tax related, but I'm going to guess that my friend who's not on this live right now got local insurance. I mean, as an expat, when you move to another country, you can buy local insurance. I'm in Bulgaria right now, and I have like travel insurance, which is very basic for emergencies, and
Right.
events and all that, but and I haven't purchased it yet, but I did get a quote from a local Bulgarian company for local insurance. I have to pay for the whole year, but it's pretty inexpensive, you know. And then there was an extra like ski mountain insurance because, and I might get that because my daughter likes to go off piste sometimes. I keep telling her not to, but if she goes
Stay
off,
out the blacks.
yeah, but if she, no, she'll go into the woods. Like there are these little trails
Wow.
that lots of people do it, but she'll do that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Jose was mentioning one more thing that we hadn't talked about is the expats being outside the country like we have for years, right?
yeah.
They think that, well, I need to get caught up. This is another big ask, I would say, for my business is people come to me and they say, I haven't filed since I was like in my 30s, right?
And
You
they've been
know,
working?
and they've been working and they've had income, but they just didn't know, they didn't want to. I you know, this is a dangerous area. Once you decide though to get compliance, there are ways to get what's called the streamline filing. You file the most recent 3 years right back, and you file 6 years of FBARs, which are the foreign banking statements to the Treasury, saying I did or didn't have this amount of X amount of money in foreign banks. And then you can get up to date and they won't penalize you like for the 10 years. I mean, there's been people that haven't filed for 10 years or more.
Wow,
So at that point, you definitely want to talk to a tax pro
of course.
and get compliant. And then it does take time. For example, right now, the IRS for paper filing is more than 6 months behind in processing. So
Wow.
you want to make sure year on year, you e-file, you know, to get
Faster.
things to the US, yeah, to the IRS as fast and to get back your refunds if you're due, and or just to get filed, right? Most expediently, right?
Right, right, right. Okay, so
Right.
Shannon, how do people work with you? Do you want to maybe come to the group later and put your email address or something? What is the best way for people
Sure.
to find you? I mean, you're on Facebook.
Sure. Yeah, I like to have my Facebook, Consult Us Peru is the name of my company.
Okay,
And I'll go ahead and put the link in the Facebook group.
okay,
And
great.
also, you know, advertising is on the Facebook Consult as Peru page that I
Okay.
have out there, and I'll put it on the chat.
Can you mention your fees, or does it depend on what
It
type of?
does depend. It's really subject both to your filing status, how many statements and or schedules they call them
Okay,
on the 1040 that I'm going to have to file for you. And then also, any kind of if you have the requirement to file state taxes also. So
okay.
these are kind of, and I give my consultation free. Okay. So I don't charge for the first consultation. If you just have questions and you'd like to get them answered, get on Facebook and shoot me a line, and I'll be happy to set up an appointment for us for a free consultation. And then we'll go into the details of the payment.
Okay, so you have a Zoom meeting with them for the consultation, yes, and then
That's it.
you ask for a bunch of paperwork.
Right. Yeah, this is how I work. Usually I like to get to know what your tax situation is. First of all, if you have back taxes or if you're filing for the current year and you're just an expat for the first time, I'm here to help educate you, to come alongside you as a team member, right? And then also I like to use my tax organizer to start a file. And then I ask for all the paperwork, and I do, ask for the retainer, just as any doctor or lawyer or any professional would, so that we have a mutual respect and trust.
Okay, awesome. Okay, Shannon, thank you so much for helping us with all of this wonderful advice for doing taxes as a digital nomad, world schooling parent, whatever, or an expat.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Liz.
Yeah, so it was great to see you, and say hello to Jose.
I will. He said hello to you back. Okay.
Thanks for watching. This is Lizz Quain with Trailblazing Families. My twins and I have been traveling and world schooling for over 6 years, and I'm happy to share about our experiences. Make sure to check out the other videos on this channel. I do have a playlist of all the other interviews of other world schooling families and service providers. We're all happy to share our information and wisdom about how to best live this world schooling, digital nomad, and family travel lifestyle. If you're new to world schooling and need a bit of help, I do have a super comprehensive 12-week program on how to travel extensively as a family and how to world school, how to educate your kids. There's many different ways to do it. So reach out to me and schedule a no obligation Zoom meeting so we can have a quick chat and see if my program is a good fit for you. Thanks and happy trails.